Today, folks, we're going to be talking about the expectations of the Nintendo Switch 2's success out the gate. This time coming from a friend of the channel who has talked to several people at retail about what's going on with Switch 2, preparations, all that stuff. And that's really exciting, but also I'm going to reference myself a couple times on some things I said today to add context to why I am so damn confident the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to fly off shelves and have just at least the first 12 months, an incredible start to the next generation. And look, before I dive in, I just always have to remind you guys, at least till the giveaway's over, that we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 right now through the viral sweep link down in the description or in the pinned comment. But, I don't want to waste too much of your time before we get into the goods. So first, let's get to the actual news portion here. And this is a rumor coming from friend of the channel, Paul Gale Network, over here on X, and he says, he's paraphrasing here, but doing a quote, "The Nintendo Switch 2 launch is going to be bigger than most. Realize even stronger than we initially thought." And I'm paraphrasing the thoughts of several North American retailers. "I'm impressed, and this only fuels my hype. I was anticipating around 6.5 million units available worldwide at launch, and perhaps 22.5 million in the system's first year. If my analysis is low, I'd be pleased. Less than 2 weeks to the Nintendo Switch 2 Nintendo Direct." And here's Paul Gale Network doing his thing. Look at how great in his Nintendo Switch 2 shirt. Now, what's interesting when I think about this is I was kind of curious about trying to verify some of this stuff. And I think it's really hard at times to verify some of this stuff because it's going to be relying on retailers being honest with you. And while I couldn't get exact information on anticipation and expectations for launch, I did just bother to ask, hey, how many pre-orders or at least interest in pre-orders seem to be happening? My closest Best Buy store has told me that they receive hundreds of phone calls every day about pre-ordering Nintendo Switch 2. My closest GameStop told me that they have had roughly around 90,000, I don't know how accurate this is, I'm just quoting what I was told, 90,000 people on their, first to know list where they will be emailing and calling to get people to pre-order. They're not going to have 90,000 available at launch at one store, but to me, even if that number is exaggerated and it's more like 9,000 instead of 90, that is still a lot of interest in an area that, if I look at where those stores are located and all the surrounding areas, there's about 500,000 people. That is a lot of interest for what is actually a relatively small area in rural Wisconsin. And I keep thinking, if that's what it's like here, what's it like in some of the more densely populated places? How can things be going there? So when you combine what I at least heard or was told by employees at these stores, and then I consider what Paul Gale Network said, and then you throw the analysts in there as well, we throw the shipment data in, yeah, everyone's expecting this to be a really, really big launch. Now, for those that don't expect it to be, I feel like they are attempting to make a strong argument that, unlike in 2017, Nintendo has a lot more competition today than they did back then. And so Switch 2 could be actually facing a much tougher road at launch. And there's a comment over on X that encapsulates this, and I did a response that summarizes up my thoughts on this, and I want to see what you guys think about it. So let's head on over here where Chrism says, "I think the one detail you're missing here is that there are many handheld options in 2025, and that was not the case in 2017, which is what made the original Switch as successful as it was. Microsoft and Valve have a very good options, and even Sony has a companion handheld." So here's my response. None of this actually matters, and I'll explain. The cumulative sales of handheld PCs is at just under 6 million in the last 4 years. This is actually fact-based data I'm citing that was reported a few weeks ago. Nintendo does sales like in their worst year of Switch in a single quarter. Why aren't they taking off? Well, they are not available en masse in most retail outlets and on most retail online stores. Why? Well, it costs money for shelf and floor space and locations on websites and all of that. And the sales of the platforms just don't justify them spending that money. And they are basically impossible to market to general consumers. On that last point, you may go, what do you mean? Laptops and PCs are easy to market. because they are such multifaceted machines that many people need to use in their everyday life, be it school, work, and obviously gaming. And they are multitasking devices, kind of like a smartphone. So it's extremely easy to justify buying one because there are so many uses for it. However, a handheld PC, on the other hand, basically only has one singular use case, and that case being a gaming PC to play games on the go. A few issues here. First is that without exclusives by platform, you have to try and sell on the basis of it's a PC in your hands. That actually doesn't do most of what PCs do. Or it can if you quote unquote dock it with a sold separately accessory, but it will also do it worse than a comparable PC or laptop. In addition, so many PC games are actually best played via mouse and keyboard, which, if you're getting that out, why again are you using a handheld? The fact that every single game on it can be basically played on a billion devices and done better just makes it extremely hard to convince a general consumer to get into PC gaming with it. Now, for my second point here, as previously mentioned, exclusives do actually matter. While PlayStation can mostly manage on the backs of third parties, that's just because they have created brand loyalty over time. I'm actually curious, and I do mean this when I say this, guys, how many new people are getting into PlayStation in 2025 for the very first time? Switch 2, on the other hand, will have an exclusive game you can't play anywhere else, or at least an exclusive version of a game every single month, just like Switch did. These games being ones that are infinitely fun in handheld or docked mode. You sell the systems with the games. You buy a Switch 2 so you can play Switch 2 games. You don't buy a handheld PC to play PC games. You often buy it in addition to having a PC to play games on. It makes it a companion system to something you already own. The very thing people said the Switch was. It's a companion system. Well, that companion is on pace to be the best-selling game console of all time, with 127 million active players on it. Now, one thing about the active player count is Nintendo counts by year. They don't count by month, so it's hard to ever really know how accurate the data is, like how many people are actually playing right now in the month of March, but all we have is Nintendo's data, so that's what we have to go on. And it says at some point, it should be recognized that a majority of Switch owners are not using it as a companion. It is the system they game on. And point 3. This gets to the PlayStation Portal. While it has sold well, as of the last reports, it's sold just around 2 million units. Better than all handheld PCs other than Steam Deck, but that's about 1 mil per year since it's been on the market. That's not bad for an accessory, but not game-changing or earth-shattering. It's also not a quote-unquote better option than a Switch 2. Why? Because you are doing one of two things. You either own a PlayStation 5 and are doing local streaming to the device, which does actually work really well, but it also requires you to own a PlayStation 5. Or you're using Sony's game streaming service. That service doesn't work with the latest PlayStation 5 games, but rather the classic library. And fine, maybe that's all you want. So what happens when you leave your home with it? Oh, right. It needs internet to play your games, because it can't play a single one of them locally. This limits the appeal of the device, which, for what it is fine. It is the literal definition of being a companion device for your PlayStation 5. So, in talking about how there is, quote-unquote, more competition, sure, this is a technical truth, but there are caveats that come with that competition that don't come with Switch 2. Those caveats extremely limit the appeal. Nobody is missing that there is more competition when making sales projections, including Paul Gale's friends in retail. They're literally just saying the competition at this point doesn't really matter. Nobody can even challenge Switch's current, like right now, monthly sales at the moment, and that system is now in its 9th year. So yeah, I'm actually curious what you guys think about this. I know we have some people in our community that love the PC gaming, and I love PC gaming, but I'm not someone who partakes in the handheld side of PC gaming. So very curious if you guys think my thoughts work well there. I was giving my thoughts as a consumer, as a gamer, and as someone who does PC game on what the appeal is, at least for me, for a handheld PC versus the Nintendo Switch 2. One last thing I wanted to address, and this is this idea that, can Nintendo Switch 2 capture lightning in a bottle again. This was a headline on the most recent Nintendo voice chat, and I decided to respond to this again on X early this morning, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this response as well. We have a few YouTubers who gave their response, and I'm curious what you think. So as I go over here, it says, saw IGN today ask a question on if lightning can strike twice with Switch 2. In my honest opinion, Switch itself was not a lightning in a bottle moment like Wii and DS. Instead, it was a logical evolution of what Nintendo has been doing for decades. Hence, why I feel it has the staying power for several generations, the same way PlayStation does. It's not lightning, and I technically spelled that wrong. Instead, it is the bottle, a logical, practical concept that has no real end to how useful it is. RGT saying here, yeah, if this is the case, Nintendo really nailed on something that's really huge and big if true. Mike Odyssey just watched the podcast. This is the post we were talking about before. You have Thunderstash here, another YouTuber chiming in saying 100% agree. This is not a lightning in a bottle type situation. It was the natural evolution of combining their handheld and console gaming divisions that birthed the Switch, and there's plenty more to come from that. Player Essence says they agree. Plenty of people in this thread mostly agree, and I'm sure a lot of you guys probably agree. But that being said, here's the thing. It's curious if you feel like this is correct. And so a lot of this right now is just giving you and presenting these statements, both from Paul Gale, myself, and what you guys think about it. Okay? So let me know what you think down in the comments below. I am Nintendo Rovojance from Nintendo Prime. And yes, I'll be down in those comments having conversations with all of you, no matter what side of the aisle you stand on. I'll catch you in the next video.